Zone of silence. You are standing in the middle of a desolate stretch of the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico. The sun beats down on your skin, and the landscape stretches out in every direction, completely uninterrupted by civilization. You reach into your pocket to check your phone, but the screen says no service. You pull out a radio to call for a ride, but all you hear is a thick, crushing wall of static. You check a compass to find your way back to the road, but the needle spins wildly in circles, unable to lock onto north. You are completely isolated, cut off from the entire world. This is the Mapimi Silent Zone, a patch of Earth where the invisible forces that govern our reality simply stop working. You might think it is just a dead zone, a place too remote for cell towers. But the silence here is not just an absence of human infrastructure. It is a violent, active suppression of electromagnetic waves. Think about the invisible web of signals connecting your devices, your GPS, your entire modern life. In this exact spot, that web is completely shredded. Localized magnetic anomalies warp the atmosphere so severely that television, radio, and satellite signals are swallowed whole. But the phenomenon does not just push signals away. It pulls things in. You look up at the night sky, and you might notice something terrifying. Meteorites crash into this exact region at an alarmingly frequent rate, as if the ground itself is a massive magnet dragging debris out of orbit. You would assume the military knows everything about our atmosphere, right? In 1970, the United States launched an Athena missile from a base in Utah, aiming for a test range in New Mexico. It was a sophisticated piece of technology, entirely guided by advanced telemetry. But mid-flight, the missile went rogue. It violently corrected its course, flew hundreds of miles off target, and slammed directly into the very center of the zone of silence. The military rushed in, cordoned off the area, and hauled away the radioactive wreckage along with tons of topsoil. They claimed it was a simple mechanical failure, but the truth is far more unsettling. The missile was not malfunctioning. It was behaving exactly as the magnetic field dictated. The guidance systems were completely hijacked by an anomaly so powerful it pulled a weapon of mass destruction out of the sky. You rely on invisible forces every single day to guide your navigation, your communication, and your safety. But standing in this Mexican desert, you realize how fragile that reliance actually is. You are forced to confront a terrifying reality. There are places on this planet where the laws of physics are not a guarantee. They are a suggestion. And if a localized anomaly can rip a missile from its trajectory, what does it do to the electrical impulses firing inside your own brain while you stand perfectly still in the dead silence? The Hessdalen Lights. You are shivering in the freezing cold of a remote valley in central Norway. The night is pitch black, and the snow crunches beneath your boots. You look up at the ridge, expecting to see the familiar darkness of the mountainside. Instead, a massive, brilliant orb of golden light suddenly materializes out of thin air. It hovers silently, illuminating the snow-covered pines, before darting across the sky at a speed that defies every law of aerodynamics you understand. You blink, trying to convince yourself it is an airplane or a trick of your exhausted eyes. But then the orb splits into 3 distinct spheres, dances in a triangular formation, and vanishes in a flash. You are not hallucinating. You have just witnessed the Hessdalen Lights, a phenomenon that has haunted this specific Norwegian valley for decades. You have been taught that light is a byproduct of combustion, electricity, or reflection. But the glowing orbs in Hessdalen behave like living entities. They hover in place for hours. They travel at extreme, face-melting speeds. They change color from brilliant yellow to stark white and deep red. And most terrifyingly, they react to you. If you point a laser at one of these floating orbs, it does not ignore you. It flashes back. It doubles its blinking rate, actively responding to your presence. You might want to dismiss this as a myth or a local ghost story. But this is not folklore. For years, scientists have been actively tracking and recording these objects using the Hessdalen Automatic Measurement Station. They have captured these anomalies on radar, on high-definition video, and through advanced spectral analysis. The data proves they exist, but the explanation remains completely out of reach. Some researchers propose that the valley itself is a massive battery, generating piezoelectricity through the friction of tectonic plates. Others suggest it is a rare form of plasma combustion, fueled by strange mineral deposits in the river. But none of those theories explain the structure. Plasma does not split into perfect geometric formations. Tectonic friction does not actively react to a researcher's laser pointer. You walk through life assuming that human science has categorized everything, that there is an encyclopedic answer for every anomaly in the sky. Yet when you stand in this valley, that arrogance completely evaporates. You are forced to look at something that possesses structure, speed, and perhaps even a crude form of intelligence, and you have to admit you have no idea what it is. If the very elements of the Earth can spontaneously generate interactive, high-speed spheres of light, you must wonder what else the planet is capable of producing when nobody is watching. You realize that reality is far more fluid than the textbooks claim. The light you see in Hessdalen is a reminder that the natural world still harbors mechanics we cannot even begin to comprehend. The Dragon's Triangle. You are standing on the deck of a heavy research vessel, staring out into the vast, open waters of the Pacific Ocean just south of Japan. The ocean here is notoriously restless, but today, the surface looks like polished glass. You check your navigational equipment to confirm your coordinates, but the dials are trembling. The needle on your compass does not point north. It twitches helplessly, dragged by a massive, unseen force beneath the water. You reach for the radio to report the anomaly to the mainland, but your transmission is swallowed by a wall of deafening static. You are drifting into the Devil's Sea, a terrifying expanse of water where the basic rules of geography and magnetism are violently suspended. You have grown up hearing stories about the Bermuda Triangle on the other side of the planet, but you probably do not know that there is an identical, localized magnetic disturbance directly opposite to it on the globe. The Dragon's Triangle is an area where the Earth's electromagnetic field fractures. The ocean floor here is a volatile nightmare of deep trenches and hyperactive underwater volcanoes. These seismic eruptions alter the magnetic field so drastically that entire ships lose all spatial awareness. You think of the ocean as a grid you can chart and navigate, but in this zone, the grid simply collapses. You want to believe that modern technology can conquer any maritime hazard. You trust in radar, sonar, and advanced hull designs. In 1952, the Japanese government sent a massive, heavily equipped research vessel called the Kaio Maru no. 5 directly into the Dragon's Triangle. Its mission was to investigate the sudden disappearance of multiple fishing fleets in the area. The ship carried a crew of 31 highly trained scientists and sailors. They sailed into the anomaly, completely prepared to document the environmental disturbances. But they never returned. The ship vanished without a single distress call. No wreckage was found. No bodies were recovered. It was as if the vessel was completely erased from the timeline. The sheer scale of this disappearance forced the Japanese government to take unprecedented action. They officially declared the Dragon's Triangle a maritime danger zone, warning commercial vessels to avoid the coordinates entirely. You walk onto a modern airplane or cruise ship with complete faith that you will arrive at your destination. You trust the math, the maps, and the machines, but the Devil's Sea shatters that illusion of safety. It proves that there are massive, blind spots on our planet where human engineering means absolutely nothing. When you look out over those deceptively calm waters, you must accept that the Earth can simply open up, consume a heavily armed research vessel, and close back over it without leaving a single trace of your existence behind. You are reminded that underneath the veneer of our civilized world, primal forces are constantly churning. The ocean is not just water. It is a highly charged, magnetically unstable environment capable of blinding our most sophisticated navigation tools. Mount Roraima. You are gripping a jagged piece of sandstone, pulling yourself up onto a massive, flat expanse of rock that towers perfectly above the clouds. The air up here is shockingly thin and perpetually damp. Below you, a sheer, vertical cliff drops down for thousands of feet into a dense, impenetrable jungle. You look around, expecting to see familiar trees or animals, but instead, you are surrounded by bizarre, prehistoric ferns and carnivorous pitcher plants that look like they belong on another planet. You have just stepped onto Mount Roraima, a colossal tabletop mountain spanning the borders of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana. But you have not just climbed a mountain. You have walked directly into a living time capsule. You are taught that evolution moves forward in a straight line, connecting all life across the globe. But this mountain shattered that rule. Over 2 billion years ago, massive geological uplifts created these sheer formations known as tepuis. The cliffs are so steep and completely disconnected from the jungle below that almost nothing has been able to climb up or down since the dawn of life on Earth. The ecosystem on this summit was entirely severed from the rest of the planet. While mammals, birds, and insects evolved wildly in the valleys beneath the clouds, life on top of this rock was forced to take a completely different, isolated path. You might assume this isolation would cause everything to simply die off, but the exact opposite happened. Geologists and biologists who study Mount Roraima have documented astonishing levels of endemism. An overwhelming majority of the plant and animal species living on this plateau exist nowhere else in the entire universe. You will find tiny, black pebble toads that do not hop to escape predators, but instead fold their bodies into rigid balls and roll off the cliffs like stones. You will see primitive flora that has remained completely unchanged since before the dinosaurs took their first breath. It is a biological vault locked away from the ravages of global evolution. This forces a deeply unsettling realization. You assume the ground beneath your feet represents the modern world, built on billions of years of shared, planetary progress. But standing on the summit of this ancient rock, you are forced to acknowledge that time does not always move at the same speed. There are pockets of this Earth that completely stopped ticking eons ago. You are looking at a living, breathing glitch in the evolutionary timeline. It makes you wonder how fragile our concept of history truly is. When a single, sheer cliff face can simply pause the clock and preserve a 2-billion-year-old reality right above our heads. You realize that you are an absolute alien in this environment. The modern biology running through your veins is completely incompatible with the ancient machinery of this ecosystem. Mount Roraima stands as a towering testament to the sheer stubbornness of life, a place where time was quite literally fenced out, leaving a perfectly intact window into a world that the rest of the planet abandoned millions of years ago. Svalbard Vault. You are wrapped in thick thermal layers, shivering in the brutal cold as you stand before a massive wedge of illuminated concrete violently jutting out of a frozen mountainside. The wind is howling across the barren, icy landscape of the Arctic archipelago of Svalbard. You step through a heavy, reinforced steel door, leaving the blinding white snow behind, and begin walking down a long, echoing tunnel carved deep into solid rock. The temperature steadily drops. You are not entering a military bunker or a secret government facility. You are walking into the most critical insurance policy ever created by the human race. This is the world's physical backup drive, a fortress designed to outlast the end of the world. You go to the grocery store every week, completely trusting that the shelves will be stocked. You assume that agriculture is a permanent fixture of our civilization. But underneath that comfort lies a terrifying vulnerability. What happens if a massive asteroid strikes, a global nuclear war breaks out, or catastrophic climate change turns our fertile valleys to dust? The builders of this vault looked at those nightmare scenarios and decided to prepare. Deep inside this Norwegian mountain, buried beneath hundreds of feet of permafrost, lies a facility built to survive absolute total destruction. It is an impenetrable safe house, holding over 1 million distinct seed samples from nearly every country on Earth. You might think seeds can just be replanted from local farms if something goes wrong, but local supplies can be wiped out in an instant. In recent years, A major seed bank in the Middle East was completely destroyed by warfare, obliterating centuries of localized agricultural history. But because they had sent backup samples to this very mountain in Svalbard, scientists were able to withdraw those seeds and completely resurrect the lost crops. The system actually works. This vault is a living, frozen library containing the genetic blueprints for every major food source humanity relies on to survive. It operates completely off the grid, relying on the natural permafrost to keep the samples perfectly frozen even if all global power systems completely fail. When you stand at the end of this icy tunnel, staring at the heavily locked doors holding our agricultural future, you have to confront a chilling reality. We did not build this structure out of optimism. We built it because we know, deep down, that we are fully capable of destroying ourselves. You walk around your city surrounded by glass and steel, pretending the modern world is indestructible. But this silent, frozen vault in the Arctic proves otherwise. It is a monument to our own fragility, a quiet admission that our society could collapse tomorrow. And if it does, the only thing standing between the survivors and absolute starvation is a frozen mountain at the edge of the world. Snake Island. You are sitting on a small boat, rocking violently against the deep blue waves of the Atlantic Ocean, staring at a lush green landmass rising steeply out of the water just off the coast of Japan. The sun is shining, the trees look beautiful, and you might think it is a perfect tropical paradise. But as the boat drifts closer, you notice a complete, terrifying absence of human activity. There are no docks, no beaches, and no structures, aside from an automated, decaying lighthouse. Your guide refuses to let you step off the boat. He tells you that the ground on this island is practically moving. You have arrived at Ilha da Queimada Grande, a place where evolution engineered an absolute nightmare. You are used to the idea that humans are the apex predators, that we can conquer and colonize any piece of land on the planet. But this island belongs to something else. Around 11,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, rising sea levels swallowed the land bridge connecting this territory to the mainland. The island was entirely severed, trapping a specific population of snakes with absolutely no ground-dwelling prey. In a normal environment, these predators would have quickly starved to death and vanished. Instead, they adapted. With nothing to eat on the ground, they were forced to look up. They began hunting the migratory birds that mistakenly landed in the canopy to rest. You might wonder how a slow-moving snake catches a bird before it simply flies away. This is where the nightmare deepens. A normal snake bite allows the prey to run or fly a short distance before the venom takes effect, giving the snake time to track it down. But on an island surrounded by open ocean, a bird that flies away is a meal lost forever. To solve this, the snakes evolved an entirely new weapon. The golden lancehead viper, a species that exists nowhere else on Earth, developed a hyper-toxic venom that is up to 5 times more potent than its mainland cousins. This venom does not just slowly poison the birds. It literally melts their flesh and shuts down their nervous systems instantly, dropping them from the branches before they can even spread their wings. The sheer density of these vipers is staggering, with some estimates suggesting there is 1 deadly snake for every single square meter of the island. You walk through a park in your neighborhood, completely oblivious to the slow, brutal mechanics of natural selection. But when you look at Snake Island, you see exactly what nature does when it is backed into a corner. It does not surrender. It weaponizes itself. You realize that human dominance is incredibly fragile. And there are still places on this earth perfectly designed to remind us that we are not always the ones at the top of the food chain. If you step onto this island, you are no longer a person. You are simply prey. Bohemian Grove. You are hiding in the damp, shadowy underbrush of an ancient redwood forest in Northern California. The trees towering above you are hundreds of feet tall, completely blocking out the moonlight. You hold your breath as a procession of figures wearing heavy, dark robes slowly walks past your hiding spot, chanting in unison while holding blazing torches. They are marching toward a massive, 40-foot stone owl, illuminated by a roaring bonfire. You would assume you have stumbled into a fringe cult gathering in the middle of nowhere. But when the firelight catches the faces of the men in those robes, you recognize them. They are former presidents, global CEOs, high-ranking military generals, and the architects of the modern economy. You are standing inside Bohemian Grove. You are taught that global politics is a rational, bureaucratic machine. You watch press conferences in well-lit rooms. You read diplomatic treaties, and you believe that the people running the world operate purely on logic and data. But this sprawling, 2,700-acre private campground represents a terrifying glitch in that perfectly curated reality. Every summer, for over a century, the most elite and powerful men on the planet have retreated to this heavily guarded forest, strictly banning all women, all press, and all public scrutiny. Inside these gates, they do not wear expensive suits. They do not hold standard board meetings. They participate in deeply bizarre, theatrical rituals that defy all conventional understanding of power. You might try to write this off as an elaborate fraternity party for wealthy old men, but the secrecy surrounding the Grove is absolute, enforced by heavy security and intense paranoia. The public only knows about the rituals because investigative journalists have risked arrest to infiltrate the grounds with hidden cameras. They managed to record a ceremony known as the Cremation of Care, where these titans of industry and government burn an effigy meant to represent the burdens of their power, sacrificing it in front of the massive stone owl. It is an incredibly surreal, pagan-style spectacle performed by the very men whose decisions dictate the fate of billions of lives. This shatters the illusion of the rational world order you rely on. You assume the global economy and geopolitical landscape are steered by sane, transparent processes. But when you realize that the most consequential conversations and handshakes are happening in a dark forest beneath a giant owl statue, that comfort completely disintegrates. You are forced to look at the powerful figures on your television screen and wonder what else they believe in. Bohemian Grove is not just a strange summer camp. It is a glaring reminder that the highest echelons of human power operate in shadows you are not allowed to see, governed by traditions you are not allowed to understand.